Welcome to Transformations Café, where we're serving light as bold as love. I'm your host, Ken Marks. Transformations Café is brought to you by the Institute for Global Transformation, or IFGT. We're a nonprofit, all volunteer organization, and our vision is a world working together to utilize the power, love, and wisdom of higher consciousness to benefit humanity and the planet. Our mission is to support transformations in consciousness and in the way humanity interacts with one another so as to bring about positive change in the world individually and collectively. We invite you to visit our website, theglobaltransformation.org. Often you'll find many other resources there. And if you would like to join our Changemakers community, which we encourage you to do, please, there is a join button at the top of each page where you can get more information. And if you'd like to support our work, including programs like Transformations Cafe, there's also a donate button at the top of each page, and that will connect you to PayPal. Several months ago, I finally paid attention to multiple suggestions from the universe to listen to a podcast called the Telepathy Tapes. And I was quickly enthralled in many, many ways. Not only is this program incredibly well done, but there in the program is compelling evidence, at least in my humble opinion, of so many things shared in the Ageless Wisdom regarding collective consciousness, the oneness of everything, and also quite possibly a look at the future of human form. But I was also very deeply affected by the stories of the nonverbal people featured in season one of the telepathy tapes and their families, teachers, friends, others that share these often very difficult and incredible lives. And so I felt compelled to see if I and IFGT could do something to join in the service of this population with the telepathy tapes because it has done a tremendous service to all of us, but especially the nonverbal people and their families. And so I thought, we're aligned. What can we do? And so my queries into this led me to meet today's remarkable guest, Daniel Kolen. Daniel is included in, I believe it's episode 10 of season one of the telepathy tapes. And he's also featured on the first of what they call talk tracks, which there are multiple bonus recordings that are available. The primary podcast is, of course, free, but there is a subscription option for a nominal annual fee, and you get much, much more material, including these talk tracks. And so Daniel is featured in the very first of these. And his story is extremely compelling, and I feel very fortunate to have met him a couple of times before today. I consider him a friend already. And so, while Daniel's work with the telepathy tapes and some of the spellers, as he refers to them, population is remarkable from a spiritual and consciousness perspective. And I strongly encourage everyone who has not yet listened to these recordings to do so, so you get Daniel's firsthand account of what his work with the telepathy tapes and some of the people featured in the program was. But I wanted to make sure that this program serves this population and all of us in the best ways that Daniel has suggested on our prior conversation. Well, Daniel Kolen worked in TV, advertising, and public relations as a media producer for high-profile clients. His health was declining. Between cancer and a debilitating autoimmune disease, he entered a pact to save his own life. Meditation, mindfulness, and dream practice saved him. In the pits of his suffering, he found limitless connection. While he continues to work in the creative arts, he also now works with practitioners aiming to hone their own practices. He brings a deeply human lens shaped by personal transformation, mindfulness, and lived experience, grounding this conversation in both insight and practicality. With that, Daniel, so good to see you again. Thank you so much for being our guest in and on the Transformations Cafe.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Ken. And um, yeah, I am wondering where you would like to go.
Okay. Well, fortunately, I think about these things in advance. So,
Oh, good. Very good.
well, I thought maybe what we could do is just, if you could, without repeating everything that people
Yeah.
can hear in those other recordings I mentioned, but just give kind of an overview of how you first became involved with
Mm.
the non-speaking population featured in the telepathy tapes and what drew you into the work.
Since I was little, I had these sporadic experiences of things that you can't quite explain, unexplainable things related to things like ghosts or precognitive events before trauma. Um, and those things were helpful, but could not reproduce them. They would happen and they would not happen. And in my 20s, it got even had a couple experiences with hauntings that were pretty intense. But it's like out of sight, out of mind. You try and get through it. So I would say I had these sporadic glimpses of experience, but nothing too controlled. And meditation did end up becoming helpful, and I have kind of a complicated relationship with it, where I was very much into it as it was helping me, and then I moved away from it for a variety of reasons. But what brought me back to it was becoming extremely ill. And what you mentioned in the open, I had a debilitating autoimmune disease, which in January of 2023 left me unable to walk or open my jaw. I was admitted into a hospital. They'd never heard of the disease that I was suspected of having, and but they knew how to give me what my doctor called a horse dose of steroids, and that got me out. And I got connected via my sister to an energy healer. So this is March of 2023, April 2023, when I spoke to this healer for the first time, named Marie, and we're talking about a year and a half before the telepathy tapes. A year and a half before I started volunteering at the speech clinic. So yeah, I ended up like getting a series of really vivid um, messages in dreams, and uh, half awake, half asleep kinds of things. My brain was quite scrambled with disease and with medication. If you research into the effect of steroids, large doses of steroids, it messes up your entire system. These messages started coming through. And these messages started coming through because I was working with a healer who was saying, like, pay attention to this type of thing I'm not going to tell you what you're going to see, just pay attention to imagery that comes through, to dreams, and allow that to guide you. And you have to ask for guidance. And so, okay, so this is kind of like um, dark night of the soul. Extremely, like, I was in a relationship that wasn't good for either my ex-husband or myself. And anyway, part of this guidance was how to navigate out of that marriage, and into a place of healing, which is where I ended up moving to. Ended up later in the year getting diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, went through 6 rounds of chemo. And about a month after finishing chemo, I started having dream experiences that are were unexplainable with my at that time understanding of consciousness. I was learning things in my sleep in languages I didn't know that I was able to use Google Translate for. I met deceased people who gave me enough information for me to track down their obituaries. I got a tour of an extensive fish farm, and I didn't know what an extensive fish farm was before I went to bed. So I was learning things in my sleep, and I was like, what is happening? what is happening? And I talked to my healer about it, and she was like, oh, you're going to you're traveling the astral, or you're going to the Akashic records. And I'm trying to label this stuff, but I don't understand how this is possible. And um, so um, yes, in this time post chemo, and I could give 1,000 theories why, but like I inhabited the body of a relative in the 1870s who was entering into an opium den. Sorry for outing my relative in the 1870s who took a tour of an opium den, but it was like every 3 weeks I would have this dream experience, sleep experience, that was so vivid. And yes, I learned phrases like out of body experience and astral travel. Um, but at that time, I didn't really understand what I was doing. Just that I was settling in my body as I was aware that I was falling asleep, and then I would go someplace really incredible and learn some things. And so I had these experiences, but the realizations that came through were much more powerful than the really incredible things that I could talk about for a very long time. So anyway, what is consciousness? Realizations that I were having was basically like we're in this field. All information is accessible somehow. Separateness is an illusion. It's possible to learn things in your sleep. Like actual like information. Like how is this possible? So my friend Kai Dickens, who we worked together in 2019. We traveled across Kansas and Alabama in 2019 for the American Cancer Society before I started a full-time job. We listened to podcasts uh, as we traveled across Kansas and Alabama and bonded over that. And I became Kai's Instagram friend after the shoot. And unfortunately had to turn down a third shoot because I got a full-time job. So anyway, the she posts on Instagram about this show, the Telepathy Tapes. I'm like, does that explain what I'm going? Like, I feel like this might explain something about it and about these dreams, about how I'm able to navigate illness and learn stuff, like be guided with a force outside myself. Like I am, this is not like um as a direction for people wondering how are you how are you being guided? How is it not your imagination? It's because A, it completely contradicts my preconceived beliefs. B, I had no idea what any of this was beforehand. And C, it was like, yes, to give the extensive fish farm analogy, example, I had no idea what an extensive fish farm was. And I went onto like fish forums and tried to figure out like what was happening and was this valid? Like, how is this possible? And here we go with Kai, and she has a podcast about documented instances of nonverbal individuals communicating telepathically, confirming their telepathic communication by spelling on a board. They can write their answers on a board as it overrides its gross motor skill versus fine motor skill of verbal communication. So they can do this and they can write answers with a practitioner who knows how to hold a board correctly, not guiding an answer, but holding it steady. And these are methods. There's three different certified methods currently, is my understanding, where these students can spell. And so what they were spelling was like, I can hear my mom's thoughts, or I can, I know you, I know this thing that wasn't taught to me in school. and there's no way I could know this other than like picking it up in the ether, or I know what my friend is doing in Norway and I'm in Chicago, kind of thing. And so like these examples, it's like, yeah, you may have one example, but this is like repeated consistently over time. So the podcast is about the first season is about this. So I hear the first two episodes. It's not a viral sensation at all. It might have like 8 reviews on Apple Podcasts at the time that I listened to it. I want to support my friend, and I reach out to Kai. I listened to the first two episodes. I'm floored. I'm blown away. I'm like, maybe this will explain something for me. And so I asked Kai, how can I help you with the podcast? She said, don't help me, help a speech therapist, Maria, in the Chicago suburbs if you have time. And I was on leave from my job, did a medical recovery, cancer recovery. I wasn't working. And so I could volunteer. So I reached out to Maria, Kai introduced us, and I started volunteering.
But one of the things that we talked about is so like you've been describing, when and I think most people listen to the telepathy tapes, we're just struck by the extraordinary aspects that are contained there
Yeah.
in the program. But from your lived experience, what would you say is important for people to understand about the day-to-day realities of these
Mm.
individuals and their families?
Um, the first time I went to volunteer, I was immediately struck by maybe the students who are at Maria's clinic aren't very good at this yet. Maybe they're not skilled at spelling. I thought, like I got pushed over in a chair and there was lots of chaos all the time. And uh, I was there for that first day all day. And what I was struck by was not telepathy, it was that the students need a ton of support, the parents need a ton of support, the practitioners who are supporting them need a ton of support. My appearance here is has nothing to do with hey, show me what you can do. It is, hey, how can I be of service to this population and how can I help set up rooms when they do group or write down answers when they're writing down answers. There is a skill set for spellers. Uh, the last part is being open. Being open means that they can answer a question on the board, like, how was your day? And they can give a response that is in touch with their inner experience. This is much harder than reading a lesson and asking about like what is the color of the tree and for them to spell green. Instead, it's like, hey, what do you think about pizza? And then they can answer open about pizza, And so like that generally is the vibe of these sessions. It's not prove telepathy. But then I think it was one of the last sessions of the day. Uh, Maria wrote a question on a sheet of paper, put that sheet of paper down, and then asked the student to write the answer on the board. She never read the question aloud. She gave no indication. She held the board totally steady, and the student spelled Illinois. And Maria turned the postcard, the note card over that she had just written the question down on. The question was, "What state are we in?" Student writes Illinois. And I'm like, what? How is that possible? She
Yeah.
must have guided him. There must be some sort of sleight of hand. And I was like, how is this possible? So it's like you can be in a clinic for 6 hours, and that can happen once in a day. Maybe it happens twice or three times. And maybe for some students who are really open and have a lot of body control, they can speak about more. But most of the point of this is to be there for the practitioner, it's to be there for the family and to open the student up so that they can speak about their inner experience. And it just so happens that their inner experience includes, for the students who can write about it, includes telepathic communication with their friends,
Yeah.
both both when they're
Sorry.
seated in the same area, but also when they're at distance.
Yes, and so I think this is, this gets to what we hope to dig into a little bit
Yeah.
because um, there's a balance that I've found myself trying to reach to keep what you just described very much in mind in the face of hearing what incredibly talented and brilliant and gifted people, at least many of the people that are featured on the podcast, they are, but the, those are not the people that we're going to interact with in the physical plane often if we were to interact. That's what I think I hear you saying.
You will interact with students if you meet a non-speaking student, someone who spells using a spelling board. You will meet them, and there might be verbal sounds. They might have a hard time controlling their body. Um, there, um, there are a lot of challenges in their lives, and that's probably what you will notice uh, uh, on the surface. That will be the first thing you notice, whether or not they're an open speller or they haven't used a board yet. You're going to notice sounds. You're going to notice difficulty controlling body. Um, that's that'll be your initial impression. Um, and then you meet the families and you spend time with them and you realize like, dang, I have so much to learn like from them uh and how to hold space for somebody, how to be there. I learned Tonglen practice, and a lot of times during session I'd just sit there and uh, uh, breathe in with distraction and breathe out focus. And um, that was a way that I could help. But most of the time, it was more on the material level, um, and just helping wrangle things and be there. So yeah,
One of the things you emphasized in our prior conversations, Daniel, was um, the significant need, I guess, is one aspect of it, but also benefit of bringing deliberate compassion to this. And you reminded me of it because you referenced Tong Len, and I don't know how many people either live today or will see this in the future are familiar with that term. So you might want to just explain what that
yeah,
is. But let's talk about the compassion component a
mm.
bit.
Yeah. Uh, uh, Tonglen, Tonglen, in English letters, is I learned it from a recording with Pema Chodron. So
Hmm.
if anybody wants to look it up, the description is going to be better than anything that I can describe myself. But on the note of compassion, this is a um, working with the non-speaking population, volunteering with them. Um, it quickly turned from a how what are the bounds of consciousness? I'm so curious to this whole thing is about compassion. This whole thing is about seeing needs and hearing what people need, even if they don't have the words to say it. And rather than going in with an agenda of of show me telepathy, it was it was it was it was being like, oh, I am here to help, and then things might bubble up out of this relationship, but not having that relationship for the purpose of it bubbling up. Instead, being there to help. And so I volunteered there for 7 months, and uh, with that curious intention and the intention, like, whoop, it was like, it was like full bore, like, watch your thoughts. Do you know what it's like to be in a room with people who are able to read thoughts on a pretty regular basis? It is one of these things where can you prove it all the time? No, but you kind of go in with this assumption of they might be able to tell what I'm thinking. So if I am thinking that, it's not a paranoia thing. It's a, oh, I just have to send out loving thoughts. How, oh, that feels really good. Wait, I like, and then that is the thing. If you approach people not in a oh my gosh, are they going to think it's I just want to send you love, and I want to you're struggling. Today must have been really hard. Like, it takes so much strength to be there and to try and work through this. And I know your body is tough. And those are the thoughts, not the judgmental thought. Why aren't you showing me telepathy? Come on. Like,
Mm.
they would hear that potentially, or they would block it out, or they would pick up on vibes. I can't speak for how each person perceives the energy, but they'll pick up on something. And so it's like, oh, whoa, this feels really nice to just, and then you take it and apply it to all your relationships outside of it. And this really tough experience of life that we're in right now melts. And all the magic happens in relationship. That's that's where the rubber hits the road. And what a better way to practice relationship than with people who um, have documented capacity to hear thoughts.
That's part of what I was hoping we would get to today to extrapolate this and part of one of the recurring themes of the program, and I think in your experience directly, was how much we can learn from this population of people. And you just gave a beautiful example of that. As I mentioned in the opening, this is not just an interview program, it is a conversation program. And Diane has indicated she would like to ask a question.
My question is, did you ever ask them what they could teach?
The method of teaching is going to be the issue, the logistics of teaching. They very much want to teach and help. depending on where they're at in their own personal development. Um, you're not going to probably get a 12-year-old who's going to be too motivated to be teaching, but it seems like from the limited exposure when they're in their 20s, they start wanting to do more of that. Um, I mean, the experience of getting to the hill was very much helped, not fully taught, but helped by, like, I would not have known what to do if not for how I was instructed. And it was the time of day or the time of night um, that one of the students went. And that's just happens to be a time that I usually wake up in the middle of the night, like 4:30. And that dropped enough of a clue to know what I needed to do because of the astral projection and the out of body experiencing and that kind of thing, and being able to control that. Um, so, um, and then it's like, I'm not a tour guide, I'm not a tourist. And I felt my role was to validate, speak, and then, play with what's possible with consciousness because this is like pretty wild to be able to like communicate with multiple people in what was a hypnagogic state, which is the state of sleep where you're going down, and then there's the hypnopompic where you're coming up. And I feel like it was more like holding conversation with multiple people. To answer your question on do they want to teach something, absolutely. It's just really hard to facilitate such a thing. And the importance isn't for, and I think the Telepathy Tapes does a really good job of documenting a lot of the wisdom that they've brought forth. And Ken kind of alluded to this at the beginning of a lot of the things in this podcast echo wisdom teachings. So you have like teenagers who have not been exposed to wisdom teachings speaking like directly, like in, their parents or their school, like giving these really profound wisdom teachings, like that are millennia old. Like, so they are like, they very much want to. It takes, just think of it this way, like for them to write a single message, like a sentence on a board can take 10 minutes of like really intense focus. So that's you'll run into that logistical issue. Yeah.
I know about a little about the hill, so you went to the hill and you communicated with them telepathically. Is that
And
what you
maybe
were
maybe
doing?
we can just, in a quick overview, just explain to those who might not know what at all we're talking about, just what the hill is and how
Yeah.
that came to be, why you were featured in
Uh,
some part at least.
yeah. And honestly, it's one of these things where like I kind of wish I was featured just as a volunteer. like
Mhm.
like what's the benefit of volunteering and helping out with the students? And I like was like really reticent of sharing with Kai at first. And then I was like, but this is like important to the research and this is important to the mission. And it's also like really fascinating for so it's like, okay, I'll come out of my shell and say what happened. Uh, and um, the hill is a uh, how non-speakers describe it, is essentially a telepathic chat room. So you have non-speakers all over the world, um, and they generally seem to cluster and communicate with like similar topic interest or geographic or like school. So they will, when things are quiet, generally, um, they will send messages to each other with their thoughts. And then have it verified on a board later is how we know it. And a lot of students from across the country, across the US, I think across the world, all have the same name for it, the hill. And it's not like a physical hill. It is a frequency that they find each other. And they share messages. And so, as a speaking person, um, mm, uh, I felt like I wanted to see if it was possible to connect with them and how could I do that? And I felt like I had the credentials to do it based on my experiences. And so I was like, let's see if this is a thing I could do. And kind of have that run in the operating system in the background rather than center it, because it wouldn't work if I centered it. So I had to like have it just be percolating in the background, just listening, you know, watching, and but more focused on support and help for the students in the practice. So um yeah. So the hill is that. It is uh um and it's been verified like in there's an episode where there was a Jewish non-speaker in Israel, I believe, and they have their own cluster. And I'm using my language, they might not use that language, but they have their own group where they communicate and share messages. So that is the hill. And I believe there have been other speaking people um who may have like had glimpses, but I don't know if there's been anybody else who's had the same kind of like replicatable experience, verified experience, and were able to validate on a board. And I wasn't holding the board. I was just, you know, in the room. It was wild. And just in a windowless white room, um, with like zero stimulation stuff around, just like a table, like very barren. And it's the most beautiful experience I've ever had in my life. Was being like, whoa, telepathy has been verified with my thoughts, and I cannot. This is my own personal experience, right? Like within my own personal experience, I have this, and it's like, it was like this opens up so much for me, but then it's like, um, uh, immediately, this isn't about getting a backpack patch that you can wear or a trophy, that you could put on a mantle. Like having this glimpse is then like, it's about interconnection. It's about support. It's about these greater themes and not about like goal orientation. Um, yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
So let's stay on that a little bit,
Yeah.
because I'm looking at some notes about uh, this idea of telepathy, and I think part of what I understood Diane's question was about is uh, yes, it's and from what I've gleaned from listening to the podcast, this population does want to share and to teach. But I think maybe the question was teach how to develop some of these skills, like to become telepathic. And when you and I talked previously,
Mm.
Daniel, um, I guess I want to explore that with you a little bit, and some of
Mm.
the things that you had hinted at least. Like, so based on your experience, then what, how do you describe what's actually happening when we say this was telepathic?
Um, Telepathy can come through uh, clairaudiently, meaning through thoughts that you hear, um, kind of like through a mind's eye, but a mind's ear. It could be clairvoyantly, visually, it can be through sensation, clairsentience, claircognizance, just a knowing. Um, uh, there are these senses that are that information can be transferred on. So telepathy, the question I have back, um, and this is from the healer Marie, who I was working with and still work with, was why do you think you're not telepathic? And we're all telepathic. Plants are telepathic, dogs are telepathic. Our chatter minds are so loud we don't understand that. If we listen, then we can hear. It would be uh, too taxing for a non-speaker to spend their time trying to teach us the nitty gritty, and also we don't have the same perception that they have. But we can get clues on it, and just by observing. I would retort back for Diane, if you had time and if you wanted to volunteer at a clinic or help people with special needs, and you had the time, you had the capacity, you had all that, um, you would learn without it being explicit, just by helping. Um, you would be getting taught in a way it's service, and it feels good. Had I been teach me, it wouldn't have worked. Um, Instead, it was like open up and perceive. If I'm extractive about this you have to one of the meditations you I did, which helped me a ton, was um, doing a body scan specifically focused on the energy of ego, or the false self, living in my body. I called it ego. I like the word false self better now. But how it looks in my body and seeing that energy and letting it go.
We're coming at it from a couple of different
Yeah.
angles that I think are very helpful to broaden it. I felt some drive to say that for anyone not familiar with the material on the program, if you were only to hear this, it might be easy to where you would become more skeptical and say, oh, well, this sounds like they're kind of talking about some very subtle woo-woo types of things. The compelling aspect for me right off the bat from the program and in what Daniel has shared with me prior to tonight and some tonight is that there was extreme effort put into designing ways to affirm the phenomena that were being uh, witnessed. And the example you gave a little bit earlier with the teacher writing, what state are we in, and there being no other explanation than non something aside from our regular five senses that was able to come up with that information. And so you will find, in my opinion at least, undeniable, many times replicated evidence of these phenomena that takes it beyond just the fantastic and or the imagined or something that could be chalked up to something that is other than what it is. I'm
Yeah.
also uh, re-interested, at least, in looking at phenomena as a lot of the prior episodes of this program, we've kind of done this, and the spirituality, consciousness space in YouTube and other media do tend to kind of sensationalize in some ways, maybe not intentionally, a lot of these phenomena. And it seems like part of what we're evolving toward is bringing them more into a normalcy range. And I get the sense that that's part of what you're talking about, Daniel, is that yes, these are seemingly fantastic things, and it's still not totally comfortable to talk about even some of the things you shared with the
Yeah.
phenomena that you experienced, but they're not made up, they're not imagined, these are real. And part of what I think we're
Hmm.
moving to and somewhat rapidly is normalizing these things. And so I'm wondering, do you see like what's happening with the population of people that we're talking about, these nonverbal people, is kind of pointing toward a broader evolution of human consciousness?
The I'm not going to put a year, but current our current world is a peak uh, de-evolution of consciousness in the general population. Um, we are fragmented, confused, tied to devices, and living in high states of dysregulation across the board. Um, we don't feel oneness or connection uh, in like writ large. Um, and whether you live in a life where you're like, I do feel really connected, you're surrounded in a pool of people who are feeling disconnected. And technology is only heightening that. So I don't see the non-speakers um, as an evolution of human consciousness. I think it's more of a untapped potential that people have. And there is such a contrast um, between the general population and and people who don't have a physical voice in this way. I think you can look at, well, where do the wisdom traditions come from? You have telepathy embedded in, at least as far as I know, Tibetan Buddhism. I think in some uh, uh, Native American cultures. I'm not a scholar, so on these topics, so this is just my own cursory understanding. Um, but I don't see. I see us with all of our left brain focus on goal and objective, um, missing getting pulled out of our wider right brain kind of view of how we're all connected and seeing telepathy as, yeah, just a part of life. And maybe I've done some stuff that was worthy of a podcast interview. And, you know, like, okay, like, good boy, Daniel. Like, like you did it. And it's like what I hope for it is to say, like, our consciousness is not just trapped in our physical body. I know this from my own personal experience through repeat experiences, and this saved my life. I would not be talking to you today if that wasn't the case. Uh, Chemotherapy also saved my life. So it's not the only thing that saved my life, but it was one of the things that saved my life was that connection. And I don't think I would have gotten to chemotherapy in a good place had I not been, open to stuff happening. It's a long continuation. So, yeah, that's my view on the evolution question.
So we're not there yet, but this population could be showing us some possible form going forward.
There are
Doesn't sound like you're gonna
people,
hold your breath though.
there are people, and I think what it really points to is that if we treat every person, no matter what their visible disorder or thing that's different from us is, if we treat everybody with compassion and listen, that that is the expansion that we need to lean into. Um, More so than what tricks can my brain do? What tricks
Beautiful.
can my consciousness do? What tricks can I perform? Because then we're just focusing on tricks and doing neat things. And I think that's really awesome. And I think that's essential because I think that gets people into wanting to try it for themselves. But you can just, let's say you try and try and try to um, uh, have an experience happen. Let's say it's out of body experience. You just can't. I don't know if you're an out of body experiencer or not, but you're so upset. I never got to have my out of body experience, and that's all I ever wanted. But the entire time you were able to like feel compassion and interconnection with all, like that is the juice. That is what we like. If we aspire to go there, then nothing else matters. That is like we're in the light, and that's where we want to rest. So uh, uh, these experiences help me have that realization. So the realization is the place where we go to. So I think our evolution, if anything, is to if you consider yourself neurotypical or you're in the wider group, is to realize the power of compassion. Our evolution um, is to look past all visible signs of the body and the person and to see everything as beautiful light soul in some way, even if it's really hard.
That's just awesome. Thank you, Daniel. That was just
Thank you.
a beautiful, beautiful statement. I want to make sure that if there's anything else you wanted to share about your work, I know that you do
Yeah.
offer workshops, so give you the opportunity to do that before we wrap it up.
Yeah, if anyone give I can speak in sound bites too if I need to. And I can also, you can reach out to me via email. So I welcome written correspondence whenever. I lead a monthly workshop that's free about a topic of interest, and the next one is going to be on the energy body. This most recent one was on waking mindfulness. I have a couple planned about what happens in sleep. So it's astral projection, lucid dreaming, and my own kind of particular experience with it. So
But
I keep
these are like 1 hour workshops and kind
one
of
hour
what's the
workshops,
format?
one off kinds of things. You don't have to go to anyone except if like a topic interests you, drop in. Um, uh, so um, yeah, I've been doing that since last October, monthly. And I meet with people one on one. and usually it's like once a month or once every other week. And then yeah, there's recordings of the workshop. So there's like all of that kind of thing available that is going to continue my work. And also like I have other like hopes and plans for the future, but that's like what I'm currently able to offer. And uh, the point, so like part of my one-on-ones is like doing doing energy work, but I also really get excited about leading people through their own practice, and that lights me up a lot. I would rather um I would rather than being like, "Oh, let me like show you all the things I can do." A lot of times it's like I want to like help somebody uh, with their specific issue and empower them to have a practice that can carry them from the point of waking to the point of going to the bed to their sleep and have it be a full circle practice. And if I could spend an hour with someone working on something like that, that may have more downstream effects than doing an hour of energy reading. That said, I have a lot of fun doing energy reading. So I kind of have like a menu of services, so to speak, of things that we can work on and kind of like intuitively go through. And a lot of times it's like I don't even know when we start a session exactly how it's going to go. I also have a somatic certification, so a lot of stuff ends up going with body, breath, that kind of science. A lot of stuff I've just described is more characterized in esoteric ways. But one of my goals and hopes is to connect with folks who are fully wrapped in materialism and work with them on body, on breath, on journaling, on intention, and not even once mentioning astral projection or out of body or the Akashic records and focusing it on plain language and direct experience that way. And I think that's really important to be able to speak multiple languages. Uh, as I mean, as I'm an English speaker, but multiple languages is in appealing to people of the whole spectrum or the whole globe.
Uh, this has been exactly what I hoped it would be, and I can't thank you enough for agreeing to do this. It's been magical just, that you responded to my initial query and we had such great meetings before.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for offering this, and thanks to everybody who spent time tonight listening. And I hope it helps in some way, whether it's your practice or your view of the world, or um, just sparking some curiosity. That's a great gift to be able to say something and then have it help somebody in some way. So I hope it's beneficial to those who listen. And thank you so much, Ken, for hosting and reaching out. It's been a
Yeah.
pleasure.
All right. All you need is love.
All you need is love, right? Yes. We
Yeah.
could play that song
Yes.
in our
All right.
minds. All right.
All right, man. Take care. Safe
Have a
travels.
good night. All
Thank
right.
you, everyone.